What's up, Young Kings? Time for your more motivation. Get started here. Got a lot to go over today. I'm not sure exactly how many different detours we're going to take on this, but sit back, enjoy the ride, and we'll end up where we're supposed to end up, and we'll pick up from where I leave off at. So um, let's just get into it. First and foremost, today it's a very special day, a very important day. Today is my best friend Romaine birthday. So I want to say happy birthday to my dog. Today is his birthday. Would have been 45 today. Man, feel like it's been an eternity since I last saw him. I know he passed July 15th. Miss him dearly. Valuable lessons I learned from him, and appreciative to the friendship that we shared. 38 years. It's been amazing time spent with him. So definitely be remiss if I didn't say happy birthday to him. And RIP Roe, always my road dog. So 45 years old. He would have been 45 today. I'm 45. So man, it's a blessing to be counted among the living. So no matter what you go through in life, realize like if you are waking up in the morning, God is not done with you yet. I mean, there's still opportunities to grow. There's still opportunities to get better. There's still opportunities to start over and, get things right. So take advantage of that. Have an intention for your life. Like you never know when it's going to end. I know it's like when you're born, it's like your life is flipping over your hourglass. It's flipped over from the date that you were born, and sand is just dripping out, dripping out. And you never know when your last grain of sand is time to be returned to the earth. So as you live your life, each day, each second that you breathe, a grain of sand is dripping away, and you're going to get to a point where there's more sand at the bottom that's been utilized and dripped out than it is remaining at the top that's still remaining. So what you got to be intentional about your life. So no matter what I go through, don't think that I'm a victim by any means. And we'll get into some of this. Like, I've had a blessed life, and I have enjoyed every bit of it. Have I had some storms? Yes. But even in those storms, I've been good. So a few updates. I know I ended the video last week on my beans, and I got to tell you what, those beans were amazing. I mean, there's so many lessons I learned by starting over and cooking those beans again. And one of those things I learned is that sometimes you can do too much. You can do too much trying to make things better, and you can try to add different ingredients. And sometimes all those ingredients don't gel together. As I mentioned the first time, I was calling myself adding different things. I sauteed the onions, the green peppers, and stuff of that nature, the garlic, and then I put in the beans and put the ham hocks in there as well. Season it, and instead of water, I put chicken broth, and then I did bouillon cube in there, and then I added seasoning on top of that, and it came out salty, a little too extreme. So I wanted to do it again the next day, and this time I changed it up some. I end up the first part I did the same thing, sauteed the onions, the green peppers, the garlic, but instead of the chicken broth as I did in the first time, I put in water, and then I kind of let the fat render down in there, and then I seasoned it more towards the middle after I got off this video, and then let it cook some more, and then kind of taste it. And I tell you what, it was amazing. The beans came out great, and it taught me a valuable lesson that sometimes you can try so hard and put everything into something, and you realize like the end result will be salty, and it won't render the intended result. So be careful. You got to measure, you got to taste. Don't try to put everything in up front, because the cooking process, especially when you're cooking beans, is designed to be cooked over a long period of time. This is not no microwave meal. I'm doing stuff from scratch, so I'm not trying to just put something in the microwave and here it is, a minute later it's ready. This process of cooking those beans took about 4 or 5 hours. So I put a lot of stuff up front, not realizing that gradually I needed to do things. So the second time around, I changed some things up. I ended up putting the water in there, and then I used turkey necks instead of the ham hocks, and end up coming out just wonderful. And I'm going somewhere with this. I'm building, so I'm getting to the main point, or one of the main points, because there's going to be several in this video. There was a story that I read this week, because I'm always trying to get new information into my head. And I know I said I don't need new information, but I still have a desire to have a more thorough understanding, to reinforce some things I already know. So there was a short moral story. It's called The Monk Story. It's a short moral story, and it went to something like this. And I'm not going to go word for word, but I'm going to paraphrase. There was a rich man that went to a monk and was trying to find out how to cure some of the ailments in his life. You know, had a lot of distractions and a lot of stuff going on. And the monk was known for solitude and being at peace with himself and just having everything together. So this rich man inquired to the monk about how does he attain that. And the monk gave him some advice. He says, look, for the next week to 2 weeks or over a month, I want you to notice everything that's green. And when you start to tune your eyes to everything that's green, you'll realize your problems are going away. So the rich man went off to his own place. And what he started doing, he started painting his room green. He painted his castle green and everything of that nature. He made sure every time someone came into his presence, they were mandated to wear a green outfit. And he just did everything in green. He had his cars green and everything. So then a few weeks later, the monk came to visit him. And the rich man told the monk, make sure he dresses in green because he wants to make sure that he sees everything green. So then the monk gets there, and the rich man's trying to inquire to the monk, is he doing it right? Does he have the right perspective? And the monk replied to him, he says, instead of having the world adjust to you, why don't you just put on green shades and change your perspective of what you see? And in my mind, that's like, wow, you know, a changed perspective can change everything. Like, you can't change everything around you. You can't change the things that's happened to you. But if you put on the right color glasses, you can change your perspective on how you see some things. And I think that was very powerful for me, because as I mentioned in a few videos, like, life, you can't control what happens to you. Life is about how do you respond to an event after it happened to you. Like, there's a cause and then an effect in English. You know, the cause, the activity that happens, you necessarily can't control that. But your response management will allow you to get in a position where you can change how you respond to what happened. So by changing the way you have a perspective on things. Those are the two stories that I wanted to get into. But then, and I'm going to try to tie them back, but sometimes my mind goes different directions. Like, I started to say a quote on my last video, and I realized by the time the timer went off and everything that happened, I lost my train of thought. And it was about a post that I sent to friends on New Year's, you know, and it was an old Tupac quote. I'm sure I said it in my videos previous when I first started. And it talks about the rose that grew from the concrete. It says, the rose that grew from the concrete, don't ask why, ask how. Don't ask why are you in concrete and why things are difficult for you and why things are challenging. Don't ask why, because the why question will put you in a position where you're a victim. Ask it how. Like, how did you grow in these situations, in these circumstances? These things would have crushed ordinary people. How did you do that? So the rose that grew from the concrete, don't ask why, ask how. And because that how, you will find out there's strength and there's blessing in there. As I mentioned before, I just went through my first court hearing for my divorce, and I represented myself as my own attorney there. And I'll give myself probably about a B minus. There's some things that I wish I would have been more equipped emotionally to handle, and it would allow me to get a more intellectual response. And we'll get into some of those things. So um, it was both one of the biggest blessing and have potentially to have one of the highest deficit outcome as it as well from some errors that I made. And with that being said, like going into court, being my own representative, it was scary, as I mentioned in the last video, being a black man in court and representing yourself and not knowing everything. Now, I studied, but there's so much more I studied that I didn't convey because I was thrown off my rocker by some of the responses. And to find out, like, the allegations that was lobbied at me, it made me seem like I'm this monster, like I'm this horrible person. And I was able to navigate through those things, I think, more appropriately had I, than I would have if I had a lawyer. Because if I had a lawyer, I wouldn't have been able to speak directly to the ex or to the judge. My lawyer would have did all the talking for me. But thankful my lawyer did all the talking for me. So I got into court, and the first witness to the stand was obviously her, and she wanted. I can tell that she was rehearsed, and there were some talking points that I committed adultery, true, and there were some things. I have a current girlfriend now, true, and she's not in a relationship. She's just here or a victim. She's struggling to pay her bills and all this. So she was playing that she was victim. So this is one of the benefits of being my own lawyer. I got an opportunity to cross-examine my wife on stand under oath. And I was shocked, because I wasn't expecting to do that. And, I knew I was my own attorney, but I didn't understand what power came from there. So when she was making these statements and stuff, when I got a chance to do the cross-examination, I got to go ask her questions directly, and she had to respond to me under oath. So, the first question was about her not being in a relationship. As I mentioned before, she's been talking to some dude online down in Detroit for a number of months, has spent weekends with him and everything of that nature. So she says she's not in a relationship. And so I think a normal attorney probably would have ended it there. But me and my investigative research, I said, so do you have a friend down in Detroit? And she was like, yes, I have a lot of friends down in Detroit. I just go spend time with them. I says, do you have a male friend in Detroit? And she's like, yes, I have a male friend in Detroit. So I said, okay, we're getting somewhere. And I says, are you sexually active with this male friend in Detroit? And she says, yes, I'm sexually active with this male friend in Detroit. I says, how long have you been sexually active with this male friend in Detroit? And she tells me since June or July. So I was like, well, that sounds like a relationship, and I say that not to slander, but it was like, when she first came out, she was saying that, hey, I'm in this relationship. And she was like, well, I'm single. I'm allowed to do this. And I didn't object to her saying she's single. And I asked the next question. If you're single and you're allowed to see others, what does that make your husband? And one of those rhetorical things that she had to ask. And then she was talking about she's behind on bills. And I said, well, if you're behind on bills, how is it that you're doing weekend trips to Chicago and doing these other things? And she said she's not doing weekend trips. So then I had to go back through in the weekend trips. So obviously there were some discredited things. And that's why I gave myself a B-, because before court system was into place, when Andrew outside of court was asking her question, it was none of your business. Your imagination is running wild. I'm not doing nothing. But when attorney at law, my attorney asked the question under oath, then I got the true result. And I learned a lot by being my attorney. And I may end up paying a large sum of money because she's seeking $3,000 a month in alimony, not child support. This is spousal support just for her and her lifestyle. So they want $3,000 a month. And I don't know if I combated it enough to get it down to what it may be. But what I did by going through that myself I think that catapulted me to a point where I can let go. Because in my mind, I knew she was down there tricking and doing stuff, but I didn't have any tangible proof. But to hear it come out of her mouth while I was on stand, it was like, oh, wow. And it kind of threw me off guard because there was some other stuff I wanted to get to. And I found myself gravitating to that because there was an emotional event. So that's where I was at a deficit for being my own attorney at law, because I realized, like, man, I was emotionally engaged in the questioning at this point in time that I overlooked some other points that I had studied for and wanted to present. So there's a lot of stuff I left on the table had I not been emotionally involved into this questioning that I would have been able to circle back to and get to. So that is definitely a lesson learned. There is an appeal process. I have to wait 21 days before I'll find out the exact amount that I have to pay. But I say I'm going to consider it a win, and this is on the extreme side, based because I'm giving myself a B minus. If it's $2,000 or below, then I'm going to say that I won. That is, it would be fair. 2,000, and I want to make sure that we get the time frame that it's not I don't have to pay $2,000 for the rest of her life, because alimony is supposed to be for her to rehab and rehabilitate. But there's things that she needs. She's always obviously in another relationship. Well, she's not in a relationship. She's just someone's sexual partner, and she made it like that was a compliment. Like, hey, we're not in a relationship. We're just having sex. Like, why are you diminishing yourself? Before, and this is going to sound harsh, because there's a saying that says you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. And I'm not saying that she's ever a hoe, because she was a classy lady. But this process let me know that a housewife can turn into a hoe. Because I asked the question on there. It's like, hey, where did you meet this guy at? And she's like, well, I met him online. I said, well, how long before you had sex with him? She's like, well, I knew him about a few weeks. So from a few weeks, you went from being virtuous and saying that you're pure to busting it open a few weeks later to a man who hasn't done anything for you and anything of that nature. But that's her life and things of that nature. And then on top of that, I went back. I said, you know what? During this time frame that she's mentioning, now this is not me in court, this is me hindsight after court, and actually today, I went and looked at my videos, my video logs on things I was doing back in June and July. And I went back to my Broken Yet Brilliant 4. If you get a chance, go back and see Broken Yet Brilliant 4. And the title on that, when the doors close, sometimes the answer is no. And had I listened to that video, I probably could have saved myself 6 months. But that's why I talk about application of some things. Things that I said in that video are true today. Like, had I been willing to receive the information out of that video, then I would have been in a better state and maybe further ahead. So that was a shame on me for not doing that. So that is kind of a long gated of how things have transpired since my last video. And we're not off track. This is all about self-discovery. And what I discovered in all this, both in like with the beans, sometimes you can put too much into something and you're going to get the wrong result. And sometimes you're looking at things and you want everything around you to change, when reality is all you need to do is change your perspective. So my perspective is changing, and I'm discovering this. And this is the lesson about this self-discovery, because we're on track. We're not on too large of a detour. We got all year. Operation Restore Lion King, self-discovery. What I discovered is this, is that never love someone more than you love yourself. I'm going to say that again. Never love someone more than you love yourself. Love yourself enough to not tolerate or do with anything that's less than what would be considered love. And I'm not asking you to live a problem-free life in relationships, but I'm also asking you to recognize that when things are getting out of whack. And me and my brokenness, like, I grew up in a single parent home. My mom and my father wasn't there. So in my mind, I seen my mom struggle, working, trying to make ends meet. And I used to always tell myself, like, hey, my woman is not going to struggle like that. I'm going to make sure that I grind hard enough to make sure my wife doesn't have to do that. But the result of it ended up being I end up getting another dependent. And this is another self-discovery and lesson learned. It's like, young kings, never take care. This is new time. This is not the 50s, 60s, and 70s where women stood by your side. As I mentioned, my aunt died and she had been married 62 years and they went through a lot. This is not that age of women nowadays. So I'm giving you the 2021 version of love. Don't take care of no woman. Don't do it. Don't do it. Two extremes on this. And then I'm speaking to young kings. It's like, do not be taken care of by a woman. Do not be dependent on one. And it's not no sexism. I'm just talking, how do you build your kingdom? Like, you don't move in with no woman. You don't be borrowing a woman's car. You don't be borrowing no money from no woman. And I'm not saying women in general. I'm talking about your significant other. And I'm not saying you can't go to a woman banker. You can't go to a woman that's selling cars and buy cars. I'm not saying that. I'm not going against the whole species as women. I'm saying if you're in a relationship, you don't move into that woman's house. Don't do that. That woman moves it with you, or you co-locate somewhere else. But you don't move with her. You don't borrow a car. You don't borrow no money from her. Don't get to a extreme where you're dependent on a woman. Okay? That's one of them. The second self-discovery and self-awareness thing, do not completely take care of a woman. Meaning, like, be with somebody that can build with you. And I didn't do that. I thought it was honorable of me to be the one that take care of everything, holds things down, and do all these things. So in essence, potentially this woman can take $3,000 a month from me and then go screw this dude for free and have her fun. And in that, she would think that she's an independent woman. Like she's made it. And in court, it would be like, it came out as though I'm everything that's wrong in her life. And the reality of it is, it's like, I tell you this, I'm not a victim. Like, I've spent 26 years in the Army. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree. I've done enlisted where I've driven tanks. I did officer where I've flown helicopters. I have a house that's over 4,000 square feet on the water, a boat. There's a lot, and those are all tangible, materialistic things. But I'm not saying that from a perspective of being arrogant, although it sounds that way and it comes off that way, and if that's your understanding. But I'm not a loser by any stretch of the means. I have the ability to overcome this. So I am the one that they say is everything is wrong in this relationship, in this family, and I'm being put off at the victim. But let it be known, her greatest accomplishment to date will be marrying this loser. Not something she did on her own, but marrying this loser, which she professed in court, would have been one of the best decisions she made in her life. Even though it didn't work out to 25 years, she can go get $2,000, $3,000 a month based off marrying this loser. So when you say everything is wrong with me, I'm the best decision you made in your life. Even the men you meet after me, you will still reap benefits from being married to me. And I stopped reaping benefits decades ago. I didn't get anything in return. So what I'm saying is, don't take care of women thinking you're being honorable. If she can't build with you, like I was just on a podcast and Shannon Sharp was just talking about it. He says, this is why he's single. He said, I don't care. And he's a multimillionaire. He's on the Undisputed and stuff of that nature. And he was on a podcast. He said, you know what? This new age woman, do not take care of him. And he made a statement. He says, I don't care if we need 30 cents. If we need 30 cents. I don't mind coming with the quarter, but she's got to come at least with the nickel. And that's what I'm asking you, young kings, is to make sure that that woman is bringing something to a table. So in all this, I am dating someone, and we are so down to a point where I think I got a winner now. And I'm not just saying that out of bitterness. And those of my friends who watching this, just so I'm not over exaggerating, type that you got a winner, or what your thoughts is about the individual that I'm talking about in the comments. But in court, the indictments was, he's with this woman and this and that, she's this and she's that. But the reality of it is, she's young. She's about to be 30. She's 29 and be 30 in a few months. But she has her own place, paying her own bills. The reality of it is, I make a lot of money. This woman has more money in the bank than I do. But she's the one that's being looked at as a hoe and stuff of that nature. And to let it be known, when I met this individual, I didn't sleep with her in a few weeks. Nah, she wasn't giving it up like that. But you did. So, but that's another story here or there. But the reality of it is, do not take care of a woman. It will come back to bite you. Build, but do not take care of women. This is a new age. This ain't no, if you were a man,